Hello there. Hey. Hi, Sergio. Can you hear me
Rodrigo.
okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine, loud and
Good.
clear.
Very nice. Me too. Just let's see. Hi, people are joining.
Hi, Anna. Hi, Raquel.
Hello, girls.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. Thanks everybody for being here. It's a pleasure for us to have you. Sergio and I will be talking a bit about high-level proficiency exams tonight, things related to C1 advanced and C2 proficiency, and how candidates can make the most of their preparation in order to achieve good results, right? We want a good pass, right? We collected a few questions from people who sent us throughout the weekend. We had a few queries, right, Sergio?
That's right. I got a few questions here. And if you have any questions, send us. We're going to be taking notes and trying to answer as many questions as we can.
You can. This is a live where we intend to be interacting with you in order to solve whatever questions you might have. So it's great to have everybody here. Hi, Danilo. Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Yeah, people are coming in or joining. Sergio, what would you like? Let's, get going. Shall we get started? I think it's
sure.
Yeah. Everybody, you can type the questions here in the chat.
Yes.
Hey, Gabriel. Hi. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Let's wave. Hi, Alini.
Alini is here. Daniel is also here.
Yeah.
Yes, so one of the first questions we received, as soon as I posted about our live tonight, one of the questions we received was about books. So
materials, right?
Yes, some people asking about some of the books we recommend. And there's so many of them, right?
I've been exposed to many course books over the years. When I prepared for the C2 Proficiency, which at the time was called CPE, I used Proficiency Gold, which
a million years ago, right?
Yeah, million years ago. This relic of the past here, new Proficiency Gold. It's beautiful material, very dense in content. But nowadays, course books are, I would say, they're much more straight to the point, more focused on helping candidates really prepare and pass the exam.
Yeah, you've mentioned something interesting. Some people that are here know that I collect CP course books. Yes, nobody's perfect, right? And one of my favorite CP course books is one that dates back to 1986.
Wow.
Yes, it's called Progress to Proficiency by Leo Jones.
I wasn't even born, man.
Yes,
wow.
But one of the things that I find particularly interesting about this book is the fact that it has over 300 pages of content.
And both for language and exam work?
Yes, I mean, the whole pack of exam strategies, skills development, language development. And if you were to compare with Object Proficiency, for example, which has
200 something
how many?
pages.
200 pages. So we're talking about 100 pages more, right?
Right, yeah.
So
considerably
this book was really dense,
longer.
And I would say that it was much more language oriented in the sense that you can see that the author felt that people, in order to reach the C2 level of proficiency, they had to study a lot of language. So there was a lot of emphasis on language development, much more so than exam strategies.
And it seems to me that nowadays there is a very effective balance between language work and exam strategy work. which is good for teachers and candidates alike, I guess.
Absolutely. But, you know, I find myself many times, like on many occasions, supplementing the course book, especially when it comes to vocabulary. I don't think that, and I'm not just talking about objective proficiency. I think that if we consider all the C2 CP course books that are on the market today, all of them are going to require some
supplementary,
some supplement, yes, in the sense that they're not going to give you everything you need. So actually, as a matter of fact, I don't think that there is a book out there that is going to give you everything you need, right? So you must be ready to prepare to supplement. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I would say that there is a shortage of C2 proficiency materials in the market nowadays. There are many more books for C1 Advanced CAE than there are for CPE. And in a way, we have to come up with alternatives. We have to create extra material so that we can effectively bring more to the classroom, bring more to the candidate. And you know, we end up using sample papers here and there, but I think it's the language bit which requires more attention.
Definitely. I saw an interview with Luis Otávio Barros the other day, and I strongly recommend. It's on YouTube. He was interviewed by Arthur from Talking EFL.
Yeah.
And one of the things, one of the things he points out that I strongly agree with is the fact that it's very hard for coursebook writers to strike this balance between exam strategies and language development. So one of the things that Luis Otávio says, and I think that it was a very interesting observation, is the fact that at the end of the day, something's got to give, right? That's what he says. And when you have to choose between language development, exam strategies, and this pressure of striking a balance between the two, then you have lots of exam strategies, but at the expense of language development.
And we can clearly see this from the way that the materials approach the content, because and referring back to what you said before about a language and the need to supplement materials, I think there is a much more clear focus on grammatical structures when it comes to language in course books than vocabulary per se, or vocabulary combinations, or language expansion through lexis. And I think there needs to be a very consistent work on that, you know, so as to guarantee balance. You know, So
don't you think that
this question? Which one would you? Boils down to.
I was going to say that it boils down to. It has a lot to do with your experience as someone who is preparing students for proficiency exams, because you're not going to find one single book on the market that you can rely on.
Cater for all
100%. Yeah. So you're going to have to find a way to supplement. But to answer, I think it was Mariana's question, right?
Mariana Silveira, yes.
Yes. I think some of the books I'd recommend are, I have some of them here. So the first one is English Collocation in Use, Advanced. I love this book. I think
this is the newest edition, isn't it?
Yes. This book is absolutely fantastic for you to expand your knowledge of collocations, and especially advanced ones, right? Since it's focused on advanced students.
I have this one, which is kind of a bit old, like old cover, you know. It's still looking good.
Previous version, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the previous edition, I think from 2007, fifth printing.
Yeah.
English Vocabulary News is also from the same collection, isn't it?
Yes. This is another one that I would strongly recommend. This is English Vocabulary Use Advanced.
I have exactly the same one. Beautiful. Advanced Language Practice.
Advanced language practice for sure. Yes, mine is it's not the newest edition. Yes, I think yours is more recent than mine.
Yeah,
But
I guess so. I think maybe yours is more recent than mine because
I don't think so.
Really?
I got mine a long time ago.
Mine's from 2009, published, third edition. Oh, I used this one when I prepared for the way back then.
But what I really like about advanced language practice is the fact that you have like the best of both worlds here, right?
Yeah.
C2 level grammar and C2 level vocabulary.
Yeah, and there's a very clear focus on collocations, phrasal verbs, idioms. I love the idiomatic bit, multiple meaning, word formation,
inversions, cleft sentences.
Yes, that's right. Emphasis, and a very, very comprehensive review of verb tenses, which is important at advanced and proficiency levels.
Yeah, not to mention that there is a unit here about advanced conditionals, which is I think one of the best.
It's unreal time, I guess it's called. Right?
I think the way that he tackles advanced conditionals is one of the most effective ways of dealing with the issue I've ever seen.
Yeah, especially because there are several interesting structures. There's the subjunctive as well, which is not something you see on a daily basis. Fernando is asking, it's this one, Fernanda, Advanced Language Practice by Michael Vince from Macmillan.
I can see here that Evelyn is also talking about a book that I recommended, which is CPUs of English by Express Publishing. Yes, this is a great book. This book is focused on, as the name suggests, of course, it's focused on use of English. But one of the things I like about it is that it provides you with plenty of practice. And you can pick and choose, right? Probably you don't have to go through the whole book, but you can focus on the
best resources
you need to improve on. And there's another book. Actually, I think you have it. You have this one as well, which is Grammar and Vocabulary for Cambridge Advanced.
This is one of the best.
And Proficiency. Yes.
I think this was highly recommended by Luis Otávio a few years, maybe months back. He wrote a post about it. I think one of those very interesting reflective posts he writes about course books. He was really recommending this one, which I gotta admit that one is lacking in my collection. Gotta pick up a copy of that. It's kind of old now, right?
Yes, this is the newest edition, but I think that it's not. Yeah, I'm sorry, this is not the newest one. This is from the 1999 edition. So there is a new edition on the market today. But still, this is a fantastic book. So I totally recommend it. I can see that there's a question here about. Carol is asking if we have worked with Gateway.
Gateway.
No, Carol, I haven't worked with this book yet. Fernanda is asking if we could show the book again. I think she's talking about this one here, right? Grammar and Vocabulary for Cambridge, Advanced and Proficiency. Yes. So I think that there are many books you can buy, and you don't have to, as I've mentioned before, you don't have to go through the book from cover to cover, right? You can choose the exercises in the areas that are in need of improvement so that you can work on more consistently.
And selecting the best resources, especially because there are many areas to be worked on when it comes to preparing students for proficiency exams. And it's definitely not just about exam strategies. And there needs to be a clear balance, and I would say this balance tipping more to the side of language work, language development.
But Rodrigo, in my experience, and I've been working with C2, C1, and C1 even longer than that, but with C2 Proficiency since 2011. And I think that one of the greatest challenges that people have when it comes to this level is not so much in terms of grammar, because I can see that most of the grammar, the advanced grammar, is pretty much covered up to C1 level. Yeah. So it really comes down to lexis. So if I had to prioritize which book to buy, I would buy books that are going to help me develop my vocabulary. Because I think that grammar, pretty much everything has been covered up to C1. I mean, with few exceptions, of course.
Yes.
But
I would say that there's a twist on grammatical structures, especially at C2 level. There is more in-depth analysis and study of grammatical structures, but I agree with you 100%. I recommend to anyone who's preparing for a proficiency exam, and my students, have kind of got tired of listening me talk about that they should focus on vocabulary much more frequently than they should focus on grammar.
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. I share the same opinion.
I think Emily asked way back then is how long we've been preparing students for proficiency exams. Well, I got my CPE in 2011. I took the exam in 2011. So I think since 2012, which was more or less about the time I was doing the CELTA. So I had the chance to work with C1, at the time CE and CPE. About 8 years now. Gosh, time flies.
What's her question again? I think I missed it.
How long we've been preparing students for proficiency exams? I've been doing this for 8 years.
Well, I started in 2007. I think that the first student I prepared for a proficiency exam was 2007. It was a B2 level student. But only in 2011 did I start working with C2 level learners. So, well, for 9 years, right? For 9 years.
Yeah. I started with C1 and C2 about the same time, 2012. So I had this, I used to work at Cultura Inglés at the time, and I had the chance to start working with groups. At the time, not teachers, regular students. But the experience was amazing back then. We have a question by, let me just go up here. By Diego Araújo asking us how long it takes to prepare for the C2 Proficiency CPE. He's asked if it takes 1 semester or 1 year. In my experience, it depends, like the very safe answer, it depends, of course. Cambridge, there is a table of hours that Cambridge makes available to candidates, describing the number of hours that this candidate should be exposed to the language, and of course guided with the help of an instructor, in the sense of developing language to be able to accomplish a certain CFR level. So for instance, C1, if I'm not mistaken, it's 700 or 800 hours, whereas C2 is 1,000, 1,200 hours of instruction, not just exposure, but with guided instruction. And I think it's very important that we should mention that there is a considerable gap between C1 and C2, the C1 and C2 levels. Yeah, go ahead, Serge.
No, I think one thing that's very important to mention is the fact that we're talking about 2 complete different levels here.
Yes.
And some people tend to underestimate the jump, let's say, from C1 to C2, the leap. But it takes, of course, it can vary from person to person, but I would say that what is important to bear in mind from the very beginning is that if you are at C1 level and you are aiming at reaching C2 level, we should consider that we have 2 complete different levels. It's just like B2 and C1, for instance, I mean, just for the sake of comparison, with 2 very different levels. And I think this is one of the most difficult things to grasp, because people tend to think that since they are advanced, there isn't much left to be learned. And then they think it's just a question of learning some exam strategies, and that's it. I mean, once you are familiar with how the exam works and the exam strategies that you need to employ in order to take the exam, okay, you can go for it. And I think that, I would say make no mistake, we have two complete different levels.
Oh, yes.
And in my experience, most of the people that want to take the C2 proficiency exam or start preparing for the C2 proficiency are people who have already taken the C1 level exam. So once you've taken the C1 advanced, by the time you start preparing for the C2, you already have, well, chances are that you have developed most of the exam strategies you need, except for some very specific situations, of course.
But the exams are identical. In terms of exam format, they are identical, except for a few things in reading, use of English, and also the speaking paper. Other than that, the exams are the same.
So then I would say it's not really a question of, or first and foremost, it's not really a question of developing exam strategies. I mean, as important as it is, but I would say that most importantly, you have to make sure that you have reached the level of proficiency in terms of skills and language.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And in this difference that you eventually find between exam strategies, you're going to have relevant practice in that as well. But for sure, there is just like there is a gap between B2 and C1, there is also considerable gap between C1 and C2. And so in order to answer that question, I think it all depends on how often you expose yourself to high-level language, especially because between C1 and C2, there is a very clear progression in terms of complexity of language, in terms of, I had tutors in the past who didn't want me to use this word, but sophistication as well. Complexity and sophistication, and how language, how grammatical structures, how vocabulary combinations become much more advanced and less tangible, I would say.
Yes. Not to mention flexibility, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, because you are at C2 level, all those things that you've learned before, you are expected to use them very naturally. Yeah. And I think this is where at least one of the challenges lie, because then you have to make sure that when you use those things such as cleft sentences, inversions, participle clauses, so everything and anything you attempt, especially when it comes to productive skills, it's expected to sound as natural as possible.
As possible, I agree. We have a question here by Talita asking how we can, as teachers, achieve a proficient level in vocabulary teaching by teaching only basic intermediate level students. It's really difficult for me if you're rusty sometimes. I would say that this is like among the top 5 reasons why English teachers end up working on their language development. They look for solutions to improve their level of English, because either they teach young learners or they teach basic levels and they don't have the chance to expand on their language. I would say that the fact that we are all working constantly on our language development, but CPD, I think this is first and foremost, a very effective solution. CPD is key to helping your English, not become rusty, or avoid becoming rusty. And yeah, of course, joining a course or something which would help you prepare if you're looking for a certification, join a course, or any language development course is not necessarily focusing on preparing for an exam.
Yeah. One thing that I'd like to add is that sometimes we expose ourselves to high-level language via books or TV shows, and we make sure that when we're reading something or watching, we pay attention. So we try to notice language. But I think, Talita, that something that also helps is to make sure that once you have spotted something that you feel that you'd like to start using, to make sure that it goes from your passive vocabulary to your active vocabulary, for instance. So make sure that you start using it. And at first, it might sound a bit unnatural because you're going to be using something that you don't often use. But I think that it's that's how it works. You have to make sure that it's not just a question of noticing things, but trying to put them to circulation.
They have to become active, right? In your brain somehow, I guess.
This is something I shared the other day. I shared a post in which the author talks about the idea of pushed output. In other words, it's the idea that not only do you have to learn new things, but you also need to make sure that you use them. You have the opportunity to try and reformulate what you say in a more advanced, more sophisticated way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Especially, and of course, all of us have to find ways to make the language we are using become relevant to ourselves. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like to keep a vocabulary notebook with among my studies or whatever I'm doing in order to. There are many words, and chances are that you're never going to be able to remember all of them at once, or you're never going to be able to remember that one specific word you're looking for to say something that you really want to say. But I think that delving deep into the specificities of a word, such as pronunciation, definition, example sentences, and then most importantly, combinations of the word, connotation, collocations, what potential idioms you might have, or phrasal verbs, or things like that. These aspects of one specific word are much more important than, I don't know, just recording the word individually without any other observations. And then this might help you bring up the word more easily because you were using the word in combinations. And I think that for C1 Advanced, C2 Proficiency exams, I think this is key to vocabulary expansion. This is extremely important to be able to expand vocabulary effectively.
I agree, Rodrigo. One thing that I'd like to add here is I keep telling my students about the challenges that we have when we're trying to achieve a C2 level of proficiency. And one of them, we've been talking about many, right? So another one.
Yeah, another one.
Another one is the fact that once you encounter a word, a new vocabulary item or an expression, then you look it up in the dictionary, you find the definition, you find its meaning, but then you have to dig a little bit deeper to find information about use. Something
not so widespread, not so easily available.
Huge challenge. The other day I was putting together a new tip for my lexicogram account, and it was the word hackneyed. And
C1 level.
When you go to the dictionary, yes, definitely. When you go to the dictionary and you read the definition, it's very clear. You can understand easily what it means. But the problem is when you find yourself trying to use it, because then you are not familiar with the words that collocate, that frequently go with hackneyed. So even though you understand its meaning, it doesn't mean that it translates automatically into being able to use it. So then you have to do some more research so that you can identify the words that often collocate with hackneyed, so that when you use it, you can sound natural. So it's not just a question of knowing the meaning of the word, but also having as much information as possible about usage. Yes.
Context, connotation, not to mention pronunciation, because let's face it, hackneyed. Oh yeah. But only by understanding the usage can the candidate can easily access the word, and I think this is one of the most effective ways they can actively own it, make it their own, so they can use it to talk about any context which might be relevant to them.
I think this is the key word. You have to have a very proactive attitude towards your own learning, in the sense that you're going to have to go beyond the dictionary. You're going to have to do more research in order to find out how the word is used, the words that collocate with it.
Yes.
So just going to the dictionary to check the definition, won't cut.
Yeah. Sandra is asking us about novels, and I think Leandro also asked us about Edgar Allan Poe and novels in order both for language development and for the C2 proficiency exam. I think Danilo answered the question, right? Sandra, you can find these set texts on Cambridge's information page about the exams. I'm not sure they are changing the set texts every year. I think the same book has been there for quite some time now. I think it's of Mice and Men, if I'm not. Well, back then it used to be Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
It's one of them is about a boy.
Yeah.
By Nick Hornby.
About a boy.
About a boy, yes. And the other one is I Captured the Castle.
Right.
Yeah.
This one is for 2020. I don't think it was the same last year, so it changes constantly.
It's from January 2020 to December 2021. Right. Yes.
And also, Leandro had asked us about using classic novels for language development in terms of sophistication and complexity of language. He mentioned Edgar Allan Poe. So I think it's too classic, maybe a bit old-fashioned, depending on.
I think it can be tricky because then we have the issue of appropriacy.
I agree. Yeah, and so appropriacy.
It's not just a question. It's not just a question of using. I mean, the more you know, the better, of course. But it's not just a question of using sophisticated language, because as I mentioned before, it has to sound. You have to make sure that it sounds natural. If the examiners notice that you're trying to squeeze in things that are unnatural, then maybe it can do more harm than good.
Yeah, and it so definitely will cause a negative impact on how they perceive your actual production, whether you are trying to sound like somebody you don't really sound like, because you don't actually own or master that specific structure or vocabulary.
And they can tell, right, whether something has been memorized, and it's not really spontaneous.
Not just for speaking, for writing especially. And
for writing too, yes.
Candidates tend to somehow they tend to memorize whole chunks and whole paragraphs, and I've seen this happen many times.
And then when you read it, you can see that it doesn't really match the task, or it's not that coherent, right? You see that it's just trying to using language for the sake of language.
Exactly, not for communication.
Yeah.
Have you seen any questions here, Sergio? Do you like to tackle before we move on to the next one?
Let me see here. Where we covered the question about books, time to prepare. Oh yes,
language.
There's another question we got here about if you were to give 3 pieces of advice to someone who's preparing, right?
Yes, paramount importance.
Yes, I would say that it's just, I mean, given the challenges that are part of any transition when going from one level to another. I think that if I were to pick 3, I would say that you're going to need a lot of exposure. This is definitely number 1. So either if you're preparing for a C1 Advanced or C2 Proficiency, you got to make sure that you have a lot of exposure to language that's at that level. Then number 2, practice, a lot of practice. But not just practice. I think that you have to have, it's just, again,
I think it needs to be guided.
Guided practice. So
guided with,
Yes.
So those hours we mentioned before, they really become effective hours.
Absolutely. So you know exactly what you are studying. I mean, and you're not just studying for the sake of studying, but then there is a very specific, a clear purpose. And last but not least, feedback. Make sure that you receive feedback. In your actually not either or. It's not an either or situation here. Both.
It's both.
Right. On writing and speaking, productive skills. So then you know that you are on the right track.
And also on exam strategies. Why not? You know, if you are eventually practicing some sub skill or something with reading or listening that your tutor needs to, or which you need to receive feedback on, I think that receptive skills would would fit in this situation as well. Exposure, guided practice, guidance of a tutor, and effective feedback, so that you can actually measure progress. And we know that at C1 and C2 level, sometimes it's very difficult to measure progress in terms of language because, of potential plateaus happening there and everything else.
I think it can be challenging to see improvement. Because since we're talking about people that are, I mean, think about a C1, C2 level student. We're talking about people who are really fluent. So fluency is not an issue at this level.
At this level, not really.
They can make sure that they can express their ideas well. So it's really, just going, not just, but it's really a question of going the extra mile and trying to push yourself so that you can go further. And maybe not many people are willing to do that. Once I heard that the C1 and C2 levels are for the brave heart.
I couldn't agree more. Definitely.
I think
not just to prepare, but also to teach.
There's a grain of truth in it.
Yeah.
Marina is asking, hi Marina. Marina is asking if there's any recommendation for pronunciation, courses, books. I can think of 2 great books that I often use to teach pronunciation. One of them is called Well Said. I believe it's by Linda. I'm not sure about her last name, but the name of the book is Well Said.
Well Said.
And yes, and there's another one by Cambridge, which is Pronunciation in Use.
Yeah, English Pronunciation in Use, and this one has 3 levels: elementary, intermediate, and advanced by Mark Hancock.
Mark Hancock, right?
That's right. I love Sound Foundations by Adrian Underhill as well. Great material, which really brings the phonemic chart and all the explanations. The extra mile is the challenge. I agree, Marina.
Fernanda is asking us to talk about writing. Hi, Fernanda.
Linda Grant, that's
Linda
well
Grant,
said.
thank you.
Linda Grant, yeah. Well, writing. I think one thing that should be tackled in terms of writing is what we mentioned before regarding complexity, especially when you are progressing from C1 to C2 level. I think you have much more freedom to students and candidates, and we teachers also have much more freedom to experiment with new structures, new vocabulary than we do with speaking, because of exactly what we mentioned about appropriacy. So especially if you consider that the tasks in C1 and C2 exams are, in its vast majority, they are formal. I think there is much more room for experimentation there, especially when you're talking about inversions or cleft sentences or participle clauses, advanced conditionals, and everything else. On the other hand, you don't have so much freedom to use phrasal verbs, for instance, or idioms because of the register. I think there needs to be a very consistent work with consistent work on, I would say, flexibility in terms of language, making things which are initially simple become more and more complex, especially because of the context, especially because of the tasks. You usually have articles, you have reports, you have proposals. I think the only one which is not so formal is review, C1 Advanced.
But I would also say that we need to raise awareness to the fact that they are expected to write different genres.
Yes.
And you must have awareness of the conventions that are part of the different genres that you're asked to write about.
Format, the conventions. Yeah, that's extremely important.
Yeah, so it's not just a question of language. I mean, as important as language is, the advanced writing encompasses more than that. So it's coherence, it's cohesion, your knowledge of the genre, the format, paragraphing. So how can you make sure, for example, that you have a text that on the whole is very cohesive and it makes sense? And on top of that, you are using language which shows that you are either at C1 or C2 level.
C2 level.
That's why I think that's what makes writing, in my opinion, probably the most, or at least one of the most difficult papers in both C1 and C2 exams.
I agree, especially because, there needs to be a very clear positive impact on the reader, and the message needs to be very clear. So we're talking about communicative achievement, we're talking about task achievement, and we're talking about organization. Everything should really come together, and it has to be very tightly knit in order to produce something which will please the examiner somehow.
Language is just one of the criteria, right?
Only one of we have five. Four. We have four there. Yeah, for C1 and C2, we have 4 criteria.
Yeah. So
there's communicative achievement, organization, language, and there's another one. Kind of
content.
Yeah, content. That's right.
Content. Yeah.
That's the first one.
So I think that it's. Some people decide to prepare for the exam by themselves, which is okay. But I think it's hard, sometimes it can be hard to tell how good your writing is with regard to the exam or in light of the exam, because it's not just a question of using language that is pitched at that level, but also you have to make sure that all those criteria have been addressed.
And this. This brings something to my mind, which is how much are we developing our own language, regardless of taking an exam or not? Is that language that we're producing on a piece of paper or on a computer or whatever? Is that who we really are? Is that who we really have become as language users, or is that something that we're consistently focusing on in order to pass an exam? And how much of that are we going to effectively use and have with us after we have taken the exam? So that's some sort of reflection on language development that I think is extremely important in order to balance our experiences with preparing for an exam versus developing language for life. Well, I think this is something we have to constantly focus on. And of course, after you have taken the exam and have achieved success in it, make sure your level of language stays at C2 or make a progression from C1 to C2.
Yes. Erica says that she's scared. Erica, don't be scared.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Don't be scared.
Yeah. It's scary, but we can get there.
Hi, Philip. This is the second time that I'm doing a live here on Instagram, so I'm kind of struggling to keep an eye on the chat. Yes.
Chat is
Renan is making a point here. Hi, Renan. He says that one of the best things about getting ready for C1 and C2 is the feeling that, wow, I'd never seen that before. It raises your awareness as teachers, and learning is never too much. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When, back in 2005 and 6, when I was preparing for the C2 Proficiency, yes, I'm that old.
When you were 12?
When I was, thank you, that's right. So when I was 11 years old, I had believe it or not, it was so naive, because I had this feeling that once I achieve this level, I'll feel that I'm really good and there's nothing left to be learned. And now in hindsight, so how could I possibly have been so naive?
So naive, so like.
Because it's, even after having passed C2 Proficiency, you're going to find yourself like learning new things every day. So it's not the end of the road, definitely not.
Ricardo is bragging that he took the exam in 2004.
In 2004.
Yeah, right.
Ricardo, this is not a competition.
Oh, man. Well, I took it in 2011, and truth be told, very rarely do I find myself using inversions, for instance, like right now. And it's a conscious effort that we have to make to keep bringing language up in order to keep our levels up there, and it's not easy. I think it's as difficult as passing the exam.
Mm-hmm.
As difficult as passing the exam or producing language which is effective to help you pass the exam.
Mm-hmm. Ricardo and I talk a lot about lexes, and one of the things that is often part of our discussion is the fact that we have to push ourselves to use new words, because if we don't, it's going to be there as part of our passive vocabulary. Yeah. So, in order to
they're in the back of your brain,
this transition, you have to make this conscious effort to make sure that you use it. I mean, when you're talking to someone, or whenever you have the chance.
Yeah, I agree. Have we got any? Well, going up, see if we've got other questions we left unanswered.
How much time do we have left? Let's see.
15 minutes. There is another question we received about preparing for 2 exams at the same time, but maybe not. This person mentioned IELTS and TOEFL. Well, I'm not the specialist in TOEFL, so if you're looking for one, text Sandro Dwarfi. The guy is amazing. But it all depends, of course, whether you are you have the energy and the availability and the drive to study, to prepare for 2 proficiency exams at the same time. And of course, it depends on whether they are more or less complex.
Yeah, I think something you have to consider here is how good you are at focusing on 2 different, if you're preparing 2 different proficiency exams.
I think Sergio has a bit of a problem with his connection. Maybe. Oh, no. Okay. Now you're back.
Hello. Am I?
Yes. Now you're back.
Oh, yes. I was saying that I don't think that this is the kind of thing that would work for everybody. I don't think it would work for me. I mean, trying to prepare for 2 proficiency exams at the same time, especially if they're very different structure-wise. Yeah. So I would have to focus on each one of them, and and take turns. So having taken one, then I would move on to the next. But I think, it might work for some people to focus on 2 different proficiency exams and
especially because IELTS and TOEFL, for instance, they are not level specific exams, right? So they're
multi-level, right?
Multi-level. They have a band. They have different bands, which so there's not a pass or a fail. Actually, Cambridge has dropped pass or fail nowadays in their main suite, but back then they used to have that terminology, right? Back then.
Yeah, and it comes down to again, at the end of the day, it comes down to purpose, right? I mean, if you have a clear purpose as to why you are preparing for 2 different proficiency exams, but I mean, other than that, it might be difficult to keep your motivation high.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And many people have been trying IELTS and TOEFL for immigration purposes, studying abroad, academic reasons, and everything else. But it's a bit different from what we are used to in terms of helping teachers prepare for C1 and C2 level exams, and how this will impact on their professional development as a whole and everything else. Yeah. Good tip for those of you who intend to prepare students for those exams, IELTS and TOEFL. It all depends on objectives.
I'm just checking here if somebody has asked the question and for some reason we've missed it.
Yeah, also going up. I think that in the beginning there were many questions. We might have missed one or another. This live session will be saved on my profile. both on stories for 24 hours, and I'm also saving this on Instagram TV, IGTV, so you can access this at anytime you want. So you can check again, and of course, if you have any questions, drop us a line. Let's keep the conversation going. I think this is the most important thing about networking and teacher development.
Yeah, and you could send us your questions later on. Ricardo says that he loves listening to us.
Thanks, Ricardo. Love having you here, man.
Ricardo, it's reciprocal. That's why I teach so many courses with you. Do you have any other questions? Hi, Lou. Lou was my Delta partner.
Yeah. Hi, Marina. Marina is my student. Well, it's great to have everybody here. Hope it was useful somehow. And Sergio, you have anything else you'd like to talk about? Any other ideas that may have popped up in the middle of
no, I think that we have covered pretty much everything. I mean, at least the things that we have been asked, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and and then if you have any other questions, feel free to send them to us, and we're going to make sure that we're going to answer all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's one final question here. Kathleen is asking if we have talked about the reading part.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, not really, Kathleen. Nobody has asked us a question about the reading part, but we can briefly talk about it. Rodrigo, when it comes to the reading part, I feel that it's one of those papers that is really underestimated.
Especially because of the level of challenges. Especially, well, if you're talking about C1 after part 5, C1 is 2, part 5 to 7. They are very, very tough.
And also the tasks. I think that it's a combination of factors here. You know, you have the texts, which are highly complex and extremely intricate. You have to make sure that you understand things that are between the lines. And
I think 100% of the information is between the lines at this level.
Yes, there isn't much, for sure. There isn't much reading for gist at C1 and C2 level.
No, definitely.
But also, it comes to sometimes I like to show my students that the texts themselves, they are difficult, but even more so are the tasks. Because if we had different tasks, if it were the same reading text but different tasks, they wouldn't have been that difficult.
Yeah.
But one of the things that contributes to making C2 and C1 level reading exercise so challenging are the ways that the tasks are designed.
Those of you who are my students listening to this live, so if you don't believe me, believe Sergio, because he's saying so. And I think that we as teachers, or we as tutors or candidates or whatever, I think that there's only so much that we can do about strategies. And in the end, there is a lot of language work involved in between the paragraphs, in between the lines. Kathleen, you're asking about the gapped text, the paragraph one. When I was while back many years ago, when I was preparing for the CPE, my tutor recommended some sort of zigzag technique of sorts that she used to call, which first of all involves not thinking twice about whatever choice you have made, because that's only gonna get you confused. But there is also a very heavy work on cohesive devices that you should pay attention at the beginning, at the end of each paragraph, so you can pick one of the options and put them in the right place. Actually, I think this live session is not enough for us to explain about this exercise in detail, because this one is the most complex of all the papers, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that at C2 level, I think that it's far harder for you to find cohesive devices that are that explicit.
Yeah.
So they're really pushing all the boundaries when it comes to reading comprehension. So it's not just I would say that between B2 and C1, it can help if you identify cohesive devices. But when it comes to C2, it's maybe most importantly, it's the question of trying to improve your level of your reading proficiency, overall. Because as you said, there's only so much, there's only so much that exam strategies can do for you. At the end of the day, what they're testing is reading skills. And I know that many people are not quite there yet. So there's definitely room for improvement when you're trying to get to C2 level.
And I think that we as tutors and you as candidates should most importantly try to worry or focus on your reading skills as a whole, not learning how to do one exercise in specific, because whatever skills you have developed or whatever language awareness you have at C1 or C2 level will definitely contribute to how you tackle the task or how you see things and how you are able to read between the lines. Because as we said before, a vast majority of the information of whatever is there is in between the lines. So, and timing is definitely an issue as well.
And it can be painfully frustrating, right? To read the text and you know all the strategies, you know everything you have to do, and yet you keep failing. And then I think that if it happens, it's not really a question of exam strategies. It's a question of improving your overall reading proficiency.
I agree. Hence the name, right? Proficiency, C2 Proficiency. Yeah.
All right, I think that's it, right? We have answered, at least we've tried to answer all the questions.
To cover all the questions.
Yes. Maybe we can have like a part 2.
Yeah, we're definitely going to look into that. But this is just a bird's eye view on how you can better prepare for proficiency, high-level proficiency exams, because there have been growing demands on those types of exams, and more candidates and teachers willing to take these ones. And we thought that we could share a bit of our experience in order to. Extensive reading is a very good one, Kathleen.
Definitely. Yes. I would say that I would try, a combination of trying to use extensive reading in conjunction with intensive reading. Intensive reading, yeah.
Authentic materials, real life reading, I think there would be.
And also different genres. I find myself reading, the same genre again and again and again. And if I were preparing for a proficiency exam, I would make sure that I would read variedly, like different types of genres, so then you can get used to different ways of writing, different styles, and it can be extremely helpful to develop your reading proficiency.
Yeah, which will contribute to your writing proficiency as well. So understanding the technicalities that each genre has.
It definitely has what do we call it? A knock-on. Effect, right, on your writing.
Effect.
All right,
Thank you,
we have like 1 million. 1 minute left. I was gonna say 1 million. No, 1 million. No, 1 minute.
Oh, 1 million! Wow, man. 1 million in cash. That would be good, right? 1 million left. All right.
So everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I hope that we can. I think we're gonna have a look at a part 2, right, Sarah? We're going to think about that.
Sure. Rodrigo, thank you very much for the invitation. It was really nice talking to you. And
thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Hope to see everybody around. Once again, if you have any questions, you can get in touch with us. Thanks so much.
Everyone.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.